Michel Serres, 1930 to 2019, was a French philosopher and historian of science whose work often intersected philosophy, science, literature, and communication theory. One of his most influential and original texts is The Parasite, original French title Le Parasite, 1980, which unfolds a novel way of thinking about disturbance, communication, and social relations by using the figure of the parasite as a conceptual lens. The central concept, the parasite. At first glance, a parasite is an organism that lives at the expense of a host, often considered destructive or harmful. Serres appropriates this biological concept and expands it metaphorically to describe phenomena in communication, society, and systems. The parasite, in Serres' reading, is not just a biological threat or nuisance, but a fundamental agent of disruption that triggers transformation and change. The parasite explores how disturbances, noise, interruptions, interference are integral to the functioning of systems, rather than mere nuisances to be eliminated. Serres uses the parasite to rethink how systems communicate, how social orders maintain themselves, and how conflicts arise. Structure and style. Serres, The Parasite is not a straightforward philosophical treatise. It is poetic, rich with allegories, myths, and examples ranging from biology, mythology, politics, and information theory. The book blends narrative and philosophy, aiming to destabilize the reader's usual categories and open up new perspectives. The work is often considered part of Serres' broader project to rethink knowledge and communication in a postmodern, interconnected world. The parasite serves as a metaphorical tool to question linear causality and fixed structures. Parasite as disturbance and communication interference. One of the key themes of the parasite is that communication systems always include noise or interference. This noise is the parasite. Traditionally, communication models see noise as an obstacle to clear transmission of messages. However, Serres argues that noise is not just a problem, but a fundamental part of communication itself. For example, in radio communication, static or interference is usually undesirable. But without this noise, the signal and the medium of communication cannot be properly distinguished. Noise makes communication dynamic and unpredictable, forcing systems to adapt. Serres writes about the parasite as an agent that inserts itself between two parties, creating disturbance but also new possibilities for interaction. It is both an intruder and a catalyst. The parasite disrupts the flow, but in doing so, it exposes the fragility and the interdependency of systems. Mythological and historical dimensions. Serres draws on ancient myths to illustrate the figure of the parasite. For instance, he references the Greek myth of Hermes, a god associated with trickery, boundaries, and communication. Hermes is seen as a parasite who crosses borders, interrupts normal orders, and facilitates exchange through his ambivalence. Similarly, Serres looks at the myth of the Trojan horse as a parasitic entity, something that appears beneficial but hides a destructive force inside. The parasite is linked to betrayal and ambiguity, being neither fully inside nor outside the host. In historical terms, Serres expands the parasite concept to political and social systems. The parasite can be a rebel, an insurgent, or an outsider who interrupts the dominant order. This breaks down neat categories of friend and enemy, insider and outsider. The parasite and social order. In social systems, the parasite manifests as any disruptive force that disturbs established hierarchies and power relations. The parasite does not just destroy, it reveals how order depends on disorder and how authority is maintained through managing noise and interruption. Serres' parasite can be a whistleblower who exposes corruption, a protester who disrupts the status quo, or even an uninvited guest whose presence reveals the social contract's limits. In this sense, the parasite is essential to understanding social dynamics, power, and resistance. The parasite and information theory. Serres also uses concepts from information theory to illuminate the parasite's role. Communication systems involve a transmitter, receiver, and the transmission channel, but the channel is always subject to interference, noise, or parasites. The presence of noise means systems must develop error correction and feedback mechanisms. This relates to cybernetics and systems theory by fields interested in how systems self-regulate in the presence of disruption. Serres highlights that the parasite is a structural part of the feedback loop. Without the parasite, systems would be static, unable to evolve or adapt. The parasite as a figure of ambiguity and ambivalence. A crucial philosophical point in Sayres's thought is the parasite's ambiguity. It is neither wholly bad nor good, neither entirely inside nor outside, neither completely foreign nor fully familiar. This ambivalence challenges binary thinking. The parasite blurs boundaries between life and death, host and invader, order and chaos. It inhabits the in-between, the liminal spaces where transformation occurs. Sayres invites readers to rethink negativity and disruption not as failures, but as creative forces. The parasite, although invasive, also generates new forms of connection and communication. Implications for philosophy and social theory. Michel Sayres' The Parasite has wide-reaching implications beyond biology and communication. It questions modern assumptions about order, purity, and system integrity. In philosophy, The Parasite calls for a reconsideration of the concept of causality and agency. It shows that causation is often indirect, mediated by interference and disturbance. In social theory, The Parasite provides a framework to analyze marginality, resistance, and power. The marginalized or disruptive elements in society are not outside the system, but part of its very functioning. In communication studies, it challenges the ideal of noise-free communication and stresses the importance of feedback, adaptation, and unpredictability. In ecology and biology, Sayres' metaphor pushes a more complex understanding of parasitism as a relation that can be destructive but also part of ecosystems' balance. Key quotes and passages. While the original French text is poetic and dense, some translated ideas reflect the core of Sayres' thinking. The parasite is the interruption, the disorder, the noise, the disturbance that is necessary for communication to happen. Without the parasite, communication would be a pure, sterile transmission without life, without change, without evolution. The parasite is the trickster who disturbs the order and reveals the structure behind appearances. Reception and influence. The parasite influenced a broad range of disciplines, including literary theory, media studies, cultural studies, and philosophy of science. Sayres' blending of myth, science, and philosophy resonates with post-structuralist and postmodern thinkers. His idea that disturbance is a generative force rather than mere dysfunction also anticipated later theories about complexity, networks, and systems resilience. Critics note that Sayres' style can be difficult due to its poetic and metaphorical nature, making the precise philosophical arguments sometimes elusive. However, this ambiguity is intentional, reflecting the very nature of the parasite itself. Contemporary relevance today, The Parasite remains relevant in an era of digital communication and global interconnectedness. Consider the internet and social media platforms. The noise of misinformation, trolling, and disruptions can be seen as parasitic phenomena, but they also force constant adaptation of communication norms and systems. Similarly, in political discourse, the parasite metaphor helps to analyze dissent, protest, and the destabilizing effects of outsiders on established orders. It reminds us that systems cannot be understood without their disturbances. Summary. Michel Sayres' The Parasite is a seminal work that reimagines the parasite not as a mere pest or destroyer, but as a critical and ambiguous agent in communication, social relations, and systems. It exposes how noise and disturbance are not external failures, but intrinsic to the vitality and evolution of systems. By weaving mythological, scientific, and philosophical threads, Sayres offers a profound meditation on the nature of disruption and connection. The parasite is simultaneously harmful and necessary, destructive and creative, outside and inside. This work challenges us to rethink the boundaries between order and chaos, self and other, friend and foe, and invites a more nuanced appreciation of disturbance as a driver of change and communication.